Most people will never achieve their goals, not because they're lazy, but because they're drowning in noise. Your mind isn't just being pulled in different directions, it's being rewired. Every distraction weakens your ability to focus, to think deeply, to do the work that actually moves your life forward. Distractions aren't just stealing your attention, they're conditioning you for failure. Every time you switch tasks, check a notification, or get pulled into the noise, you're training your brain to be scattered, weak, and unfocused. And 5 years from now, that's the version of you that will exist. Or you can take control now. If you don't order your mind, control your attention, and systemize your time, someone else will. You have to guard your mind. I'm loving the library setup right now. The library is looking awesome. I know it's not about how it looks, but the feeling and the environment is very important for me. Like the lighting, the focus, all of those things come together to help me perform better, or they're kind of diabolical and they kind of wear and tear on my energy resources. And you have a finite amount of willpower every day. So you can't just put yourself in a space of distraction and expect yourself to perform well consistently. You might be able to get away with it 50% of the time, 75% of the time, but the other half of that time, whatever that non-portion is, you're missing out on the focus and the peace that comes with building yourself a focus chamber where you've aligned the flow triggers, you've aligned your environment in a way that allows you to just concentrate on the thing that matters without interruption. I don't know what that looks like for you. I prefer silence, right? Or maybe some quiet music, especially if I'm in a cafe. So it's important to know how you work, and it's also just important to know things that don't work for you. If you know things that are blocking your focus, interruptions is probably my biggest one. Interruptions and noises and visual distractions. People moving around a lot, people moving around next to me, people trying to talk to me. Those are absolutely antithetical to focus because you're getting interrupted. The amount of attention that another human being requires of you is a lot more than maybe you consciously recognize, but you're diverting attention and resources and you're switching tasks inside of your working memory bank to that person. And so now your brain has to load a new bank of rules, a new bank of strategy, a new context. So the more that you switch context, the more your focus struggles, because that context switching leads an attentional residue. Your brain is still processing that context, that information, the words, the interaction with the person, whatever it is. It's very important to be aware, because on the other hand, when you're just focusing on one context, your brain is able to turn off those settings that are consciously turned on. I need to do this thing. Well, after a while, especially if you don't have any interruptions, your brain is able to fire those neurons, those neural pathways for that specific task faster when it's able to fire in isolation. So those circuits have to be firing in isolation. If you don't isolate the circuit, you don't get to wrap those myelin tissue, those myelin layers around those neural pathways, those two neurons that are firing. And so as a result, it goes slower. And as a result, you don't build skill as fast. You don't build the memory as fast. And it becomes harder and harder to access that flow state or that state of deep focus, or what Cal Newport just calls deep work, right? Just like you can't do deep work if you're not able to do long bouts of uninterrupted time. So that's why it's so important to understand the kind of focus chamber that works best for you. Because some people might work great like in a loud studio. I can't do loud at all. Loud drives me nuts. I think there's a certain level of noise, there's a certain level of decibels that I can handle, and any more than that, I just get overstimulated and I just do not like it. But the reason why we have to understand why it's so important to clear certain circumstances and pull out of certain things before we get too into them is that attentional residue. So every time I get an interruption, I'm switching context within my prefrontal cortex. I'm switching settings. and then my attention is on that setting, and then I have to switch back to the other setting. I was already on that setting, so once I have to switch back, that takes more energy now to get back into that same state of mind, those same ideas, that same thought train, right, that was moving. When you're in flow, you have that whole thought train and the words are just flying off the page. That's great. We love that. You can't have that if it's getting interrupted every 5 to 10 minutes. If you're getting Slack notifications and email pings. I cannot believe people have email notifications on their on their desktop, on their laptop. I think that is insane. Unless your job is to manage emails as an administrative assistant, I don't see, there is nothing but insanity for getting constant pings and notifications of any kind, period. I get it if you have a favorites list and it's like you get phone calls from emergency contacts. That makes sense. Anything other than that, you're just pulling from your ability to concentrate on the thing that actually matters, that would actually move your life forward. Because what's the one thing that never gets done? It's your top priority, right? Your top priority is the least likely thing to get done. It is the most cognitively demanding task. It is also the most important needle-moving task in your life right now. I don't know what it is, but that most important thing is the least likely thing to occur in your day because of all the factors that need to take place in order for you to actually achieve it. That's why Alex Ramosi and not just him, but I want to say, I think it's Charlie Munger, talks about conditions for success. I don't know if it's him. It could be totally wrong. The whole point is conditions for success are aligning as many factors, or what Stephen Kotler and the Flow Research Collective would call flow proneness, as many factors as possible in your environment to make sure that you just do the one thing you're supposed to do. In fact, me talking to the camera right now is not the one thing I'm supposed to do, so I should probably end this video. But it's really important to understand the factors that actually play a role in helping you focus and the things that absolutely do not. And so it's really important to clear all your distractions, clear your phone notifications, clear anything that's going to be able to pull on your attention at all. Now, if you work great in a cafe and you're fine with listening to people talk, that's fine, right? But if you know that doesn't work for you, set up a workspace for yourself. All this stuff that you see right here was stuff that I gathered from like Goodwill and like around my house in random storage places and attics. I obviously invested in the microphone. This garage, this table, Goodwill. This thing back here is also from the garage somehow. I don't know. There's like a lot of junk in my garage. Not junk, but like a lot of stuff in my garage. So I just pulled stuff out and was like, I'm going to make myself a bunker where I'm going to have my focus spotlight. This is very important for me personally, is to have a spotlight for my attention, because if light is directing there and everything else is dark, that creates a spotlight effect. It helps me narrow my attention on the one thing I'm doing. It's also really helpful for me to have just a writing process every day where I just visually, I'm just writing. It's free writing. I don't have any objective for it, but usually my best work comes when I don't have an objective, because my subconscious mind has been processing ideas. And so maybe I'll have a prompt. What am I excited for today? That was my prompt. Did the first one, and then I wrote 1,000 words, right? And the reason why that happened was because I was able to focus. I was able to tune out all the noise. I had no distractions. I had no interruptions. And on top of that, I was actually physically writing. And the power of physically writing is essentially tenfold. But to give you the basics, it allows your working memory it allows to lower your, saying lowers and allows at the same time. It allows your brain to lower its cognitive load by not having to store so many things in your working memory. Your working attention span can only hold so much stuff. And so when you drop that down, you're able to access more of your unconscious mind and those ideas that you seem to just like, that you forget by midnight, as one YouTube video that blew up suggests, which is great because they're all these great ideas that we want to act on, but we forget them so easily, or we just don't act on them. It's the act of missing an idea is not always like, oh, I just forgot about it. Maybe you wrote it down, but you didn't come back to it. Or maybe you're just too busy to actually spend time doing it. I don't know what it is for you. But having a process to act, like a time in your day and a space in your day to just process stuff out and think for a second, think clearly, focus your attention. And that's what physically writing is, focusing your visual field on one thing at a time. And that is a blissful process, and experiencing that kind of flow every day with just a little bit of coffee. This is like 8 ounces of mushroom coffee, but it is powerful. So I only need 8 ounces because I'm already wired and I haven't even finished it. A little bit of fasting in the morning for me. I take 2,000 milligrams of sodium, which is probably too much. I don't know, is my face kind of puffed right now, or is it looking good? Oh well. Those things help for me. I don't know if that made any sense at all. Flow is a gift. And I just wrote this about God, so I'm gonna just plug this at the end because everything in my life is trademark Holy Spirit. Everything's delivered from God for me. I don't get. I get my creativity from my passion and desire to know the mind of God. And I don't say that from a holy or religious place. That's just my relationship with Jesus. That's just how it is for me. So I was thinking about this morning because I was dancing outside. And I wanted to hit this topic for like people who need more real dopamine and less artificial stuff. I love taking my breaks as times to just go, as in Severance, have a music dance experience. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes or timed out or have lights and Mr. Milkshake being like, but there's seriously, I love his dance. He's like, I love that clip. Oh my gosh. Dancing is just a form of freedom. It's just a form of physical liberation of tension. And I love dancing at church. I love dancing in the backyard. I love dancing in my room. It doesn't really matter. I think dancing is just a form of just releasing tension. And there's all of this energy that human beings, as conscious beings that we are meant to channel and experience. I believe that is the energy of our source. I believe that is the energy of God. I believe that energy is pure, but because it's so strong, it's very easy for us to mix that up or dilute it because it gives us an anxious feeling if we don't know how to deal with it. Because we're transcendent and we're stuck in our bodies and our lives, right? But being able to rest in God's presence and dance in His freedom is really fun. And I was just dwelling in that peace and just like, I don't know, there's something about that. And God isn't always like an experiential feelings God. Sometimes it's like life is hard, right? And it's just hard to get through. And you have to be patient and trust that there's something good coming from this process. I think a lot of that perspective of learning how to filter your feelings has to do with the timeline, the time, and the scale at which you're looking at things. So timeline and then the zoom of how close you're looking at just yourself, you're looking at yourself and others, you're looking at you and your family, you're looking at you and your future generations, right? The further you zoom out, the easier it is to understand the good things that could be coming. But you don't have to see every trial as this is a good thing. It's just you genuinely don't know whether this is a good or bad thing, whether this is something you're gonna like or hate as your future self, because often the hardest seasons are the ones that you're most grateful for in the future because of the person you became as a byproduct of it. Rewind that. The hardest seasons are often the ones you're most grateful for because in those seasons you became, you changed, you shifted, you grew, God moved in your life. There was a breakthrough. You learned something. You don't learn from no friction. Even from a neuroscience perspective, neuroplasticity occurs only under friction. There has to be struggle, conflict, agitation, something to stimulate a shift in the neural pathways. I think God is blessing us. And I don't mean this as every bad thing in the world is good. That's not what I'm going with. I'm saying the inconvenience of life on the short term, sometimes on the long term, sometimes it's a grind season. Those things are developing you into something better. And you can choose to believe that it's preparing you for better, or you can choose to believe to be hyper fixated and emotionally dependent upon your circumstances, which then leads to a very curmudgeon-y, frustrating, reactive life, which I personally haven't enjoyed. I don't enjoy being reactive emotionally. It sucks. You're a victim to your feelings, and you're a victim to your circumstance, and you're a victim to your mind. And I want to control my thoughts because not every single thought that I think is the most valuable, godly, righteous, true, pure, good thing. Oftentimes it's totally out of left field, or it's just a little doorstep for the enemy to come in and throw me off track, whether that's discouragement or lust or distraction or whatever. I have to guard my mind. I am the guardian at the gates of my attention. And you have to accept that mindset if you want to become free from the devious thoughts of the enemy. You have to take ownership of your mind. The things residing in your attention, consciously and subconsciously, are your responsibility. What comes and goes from your attention. I get it. There are things that came into your attention at a time when you were not able to control it. And there's trauma and there's real stuff there. And if you need to get therapy or you need to talk to a psychotherapist, don't talk to me because I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not anything to enzonist. So I don't have the expertise to talk about that. But seek real guidance if you need real guidance about real crazy stuff. That's real. But at the same time, today, what are you going to do about it? Today, how am I going to own my attention now? Today, where am I going to direct and place my attention now? Because where I place my attention is what creates my life. That's what I think about. That's what I focus on. That's what I do. That's what I relate to others. That's what I influence with others. And that becomes the person that I am in the next 72 hours and in the next 5 years. And I know it's not that simple. You can change. It doesn't mean that what you do today is what you're going to be in 10 years. But what you are repeatedly doing is what you are becoming. That's just the reality, right? Your thoughts become your reality over time. It doesn't immediately, but that little thought about doing that thing, that little temptation in your head to backslide, if you do not address it and say, hey, hang on a second, this does not belong inside my attention. This does not belong in the future that I'm creating. This does not belong in the mind of the man of God that I'm called to be. So no, that I'm going to have boundaries there, and that's not going to be acceptable. And you have to have standards, and you have to become this person that can look yourself in the mirror and say, I know you're feeling tired right now, and you're talking to yourself. This is what I do in the mirror. Last night, this happened. I told myself, I know you're being tempted right now, and I know you feel attacked, and I know you're tired of this. I know you're tired of fighting this fight, and you're tired of feeling mentally attacked by the enemy with lust and distraction and discouragement. But you're absolutely not going to stop, because I'm not going to stop for you. And I'm not going to slow down and let the enemy drag us back down again. And I had a conversation with myself, right? Sometimes you don't converse with yourself consciously. It's just subconscious, just rumination, just noise, reaction. That we don't have that moment to reconnect to ourselves and have a conscious moment of decision. And I think there's something about looking yourself in the eyes and getting present with what's going on in your life and saying, does this doubt serve me right now? Does this distraction serve me right now? Is this really who I want to become? That's hard because, dude, the noise is real and the temptations and the struggles are real. And the struggle is not nothing. I'm not trying to diminish your experience or your struggle. I'm simply amplifying and emphasizing your agency in the process, because nobody can own that for you and nobody can protect your mind for you. So you have to look in the mirror and just have that real conversation with yourself. I don't know what that looks like for you, but if you're not having it, it's guaranteed to pretty much not happen unless some cataclysmic life distressing event happens, like your family dies or you get in the car crash, right? And now it's like, well, now we're going back to zero, right? Now you've hit this massive life or health crisis, and now you're thinking consciously. Don't wait for a crisis and chaos to consciously own the stuff that's going on in your mind right now and the kind of person you're becoming, and the things you're doing every day, and the way you're spending your life, the way you're spending your attention. You can shift that right now, but it starts with just getting aware and waking up, looking in the mirror, and having the conversation. Whether it's a good day or a bad day, whether you got interrupted today and somebody threw off your groove, or if you're vibing, everything's great, you have to still look yourself in the mirror and have that real conversation. Because if you don't, what's gonna happen, man? Life is just gonna eat you up, because life is relentless. And I even remember just being like $8,000 in debt this last year. And to some people that's nothing, and to some people that's huge. It doesn't matter, man. It's my experience is not your experience. I don't expect you to have the same experience as me. But hopefully through my experiences or my story, you can see a process that you could also apply. And that process is perseverance. When things suck, when life sucks, am I choosing to trust that the Lord is providing something good downstream, and He will give me the strength right now in this season to continue moving forward and push through and persevere to that good harvest of righteousness that I know is coming? It's just not here yet. It's called delayed gratification. It's the process of success. Every entrepreneur will tell you that. Or am I going to choose to distrust that good source, or just knock it, or not even pursue it, and instead just trust my feelings in this current circumstance and be a slave to the current circumstance, or the current feeling, or the current outcome? Because if I'm just there goes my power. I wonder if I just broke this circuit. It's back. Cool. Man, I was really in flow. If I'm giving this present circumstance power, that's my choice. If I'm just looking to God, trying to be chill, trying to find faith in God, but my faith in God is just dependent on the kinds of circumstances and blessings God gives me, it's not faith, that's just feeling, it's just reactivity. Your dependency on circumstance is a byproduct, it's a function of your frame of reference. Your dependency on circumstance is a function of your frame of reference. Am I coming from an all or nothing mindset? Am I coming from that, if this doesn't work right now, it's never gonna work in the future? Hyper-fixated, short-term focus, micro-obsessive, reactive state. Just focusing on myself and this current feeling. Or am I coming from a longer time horizon, a larger scale vision, that I'm coming from the place of the God who delivers, the God who's been faithful to me? I know not everyone has a faith, right? And that's not for me to decide for you, but I can't lie about my faith and pretend that I just magically pull this faith out of nowhere, because that's not true, right? I have to speak the truth of my experience. I'm not saying you have to live like me, but I'm not gonna lie to you about how I'm living and how I'm getting through the struggle and the real stuff that's actually happening in my life, because this is real for me. And coming from the place of the God that delivers means I'm not so hung up on this one being the one, because I can trust in the one whose promises never fail, the one who brought me out of Egypt, the one who brought me through that last season of struggle, the one who has brought me to this moment. And everyone's like, well, how did God bring you to this moment? I don't really want to get in this massive philosophical discussion with you right now, other than the fact that my perseverance is a function of my dependence and my power that I get from God. When I'm running a half marathon with no training and my legs are seizing at mile 7, literally seizing up because I've been wearing a hoodie the whole time, I didn't bring electrolytes or water, I didn't fuel appropriately, I didn't eat a breakfast, just went on a run and decided to just run 12 miles because the night before I had the whole relapse and I was mentally just done. But that perseverance and that ability to walk when my legs were seizing during and after, and I wasn't walking obviously, but my ability to run those last 5 miles at the pace that I did, I was doing a 7-minute mile for a minute there with my legs being hammered, which after doing the miles that I did, that just felt like impossible. That for me is a God thing. I know not everybody likes to hear that, but I'm not here to preach to any particular person. I'm just here to tell you what's like, this is real for me. And that was real for me. And that's what happened. And I can trust it. It's not just like, oh, God got me through a marathon. It's just like when you experience God on a consistent basis, it becomes harder and harder to distrust his goodness. When you're full of the world's noise, it's very easy to continue to spiral and react and doubt and feel discouraged and just stay stuck. But the more time you get exposed to that source that loves you, the more time you spend time with people on that level, on that energy, there is something completely different. Your life just starts to change, your heart and your desires start to change. And I'm really preaching right now, I feel like, which was not my original intention. But I don't want to censor anything here. I just want to be real. There's a level of stability. There's a level of peace that comes when you trust, I guess. Trust that God has a good purpose and is working out something good. And you're just trusting that God is good. It doesn't mean that all the time my situation is convenient. But it does mean that God is good and God has been good and God will be good. And that's outside of my need to control that, which is great. So that feels, it's just a sense of freedom that comes when you don't have to control everything. I think that was the realization for me. This is the final point, and then I'm gonna shut up. I'm finding freedom in knowing I can grind right now, but I don't need to control the situation because God already worked it out. I can take agency right now, but I'm not losing my mind when things go sideways because I'm not dependent on my situation, I'm dependent on my source. I can take agency right now, but I'm not losing my mind when things go sideways because I'm not dependent on my situation, I'm dependent on my source. Dependency is a function of devotion. It's a function of the heart's desire. What you depend on, what your happiness is derived on a day-to-day basis, has to do with what's ruling in your heart's desire. That ultimate attachment, your life's biggest deal, the car, the girls, the approval of others, the achievements, the feelings, the relationship. Whatever is ruling over your desire in your life orient around. Your decisions orient around your heart's desire. Whatever you allow into your heart shapes your desire. So choose wisely, because what you allow into your heart shapes your desire, which shapes your decisions, which shapes your life destiny for being real. So you want to decide wisely. You want to use discernment. You want to be careful about what you let inside your heart, because not everything is real. Not everything is true. Not everything is good. This world is a terrible heart tuning station. It's filled with anxiety, panic, dread, division, chaos, violence, malice, slander, envy, greed, hate, impurity on every level. But my God is faithful. My God is good. And I can get that pure signal from my God. And that's pretty cool. We need internal boundaries to re-architect our inner world, and thereby influencing the outer world of our actions, our energy, and the kinds of relations that we create with other people. As Christians, we try to act chill and good and feel good and everything's fine. If our faith in God's promise is a function of the circumstances God gives us, or the blessings God gives us, we're not living by faith, we're living by feeling. We're living in reactivity. That's not faith. But you need a system for gaining control of your thoughts, feelings, desires, behaviors, habits, nature, and ultimately your life outcomes, who you become. That starts with your thoughts. So we have to take control of that system. Because if we don't take control of the system, some system is controlling us. If you don't take control of the system of your thoughts, there is a system that is already programming your thoughts for you. Let that sink in. The end. Hopefully that made sense. If you enjoyed this rant, this little micro podcast, if you enjoyed this, just hit the like and subscribe, and I'll be around for more content. Peace.